It's a bird.
It's a plane!
It's the Glute Guys.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to the Glute Guys Network. Today we have another special guest, Dr. Richard Mack, PT DPT, aka the MMA Doc. Rich, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, Rich, we're excited to have you on. You have a very unique career working with these fighters, and we're excited to dive into what a day in the life of the MMA doc looks like.
Oh, definitely. We could definitely dig into all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't have the most experience with UFC or MMA and all that stuff, but it actually for me all started when I was in high school, and I had a football coach whose dad was the vice president of the UFC, so he actually got us to go to some fights. So
Nice.
the big one that I saw when I was in high school was John Jones versus Sonnen. So
Wow.
yeah, that was the first fight
That's
I've
pretty
ever
cool.
been to, and I cannot complain when it comes to that. So we were very excited to talk to you today.
That's awesome, man. That's a sweet ticket.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got lucky, and it's funny. At that point, I knew nothing about fighting at all. So I was like, "Oh, just some guy." I hear this might be like a heavyweight fight or something like that. Or,
That's a good fight.
Mm-hmm.
But Rich, every story has a beginning, and we like to touch on everybody's just to see where we all started and came from. So, how did your journey with fighting, fitness, and your career start and lead to where you are now?
So I started my martial arts background back in like early 2000s. I just wanted to study martial arts. And I think the first school I went to was like Jeet Kune Do school, which is like Bruce Lee. And then I throughout that journey, I just fell in love with Muay Thai. So then I ended up going to a Muay Thai gym. I just been training there, and just competing in exhibition matches and stuff. And then I started working. I eventually I got back into Muay Thai again. And I've just been working with like teammates and then fighters, and along the way, it bridged off into a business in 2020 once the whole pandemic hit. So I always wanted to work with fighters, but it didn't really feel like it was feasible as a physical therapist because they're just not really a financially affluent group of people. So charging sessions and stuff like that for physical therapy probably wouldn't cut it, and I would just be like almost surviving. So I found a way to just kind of reimagine my skill set, work online, provide them with a lot of value and the results that they are looking for, and that makes sense for me to save my time. And it's been going very well. So it's just been a way better model than, let's say, charging one-on-one sessions.
Mm-hmm. So I guess what are the biggest things you switched, like going into fighting a little bit more, or how did you modify to get to that point where you can work with fighters?
So when I worked as a physical therapist and I worked with like teammates and fighters, they would come in and we would do rehab and stuff. But I noticed the overall trend was that I was almost putting out fires for them. They were coming with injuries, nagging injuries and stuff. And yeah, I helped them get better, but it didn't truly address the root cause of it. So when I thought about my business, I really thought about like, hey, what is the root cause of all their injuries? What can actually keep them on the mats, and instead of just like having them in the clinic for rehab. So that's when I started taking a deep dive and just really just started addressing their strength and conditioning portion, because I have background in strength and conditioning. Worked on their nutrition and weight cutting to make sure that they are just eating properly to perform and recover during the fight camp. So they're just feeling a lot better during their fight camps. They're feeling a lot more durable and a lot less injured, and they're just doing what they enjoy instead of just like spending a couple hours every week in a clinic for nagging injuries.
So a lot more prevention focus instead of, I guess, reacting to the different injuries.
Yeah, I mean, there are times that I do deal with some athletes that just get an injury,
Mhm.
and I will do it virtually. So I'm MDT trained, so I just teach them how to own their injuries, and I really kind of cut out the nonsense that really happens in the broken healthcare system where they just go down a whole rabbit hole.
Mm.
So I just give them what they need, tell them the truth about stuff. Uh, they feel like they are better equipped to their own injury. They have a much better understanding of their own injury, and they just are happy to just get back on the mats without like taking time off and spending all this money for all these tests that they don't need.
Oh no, definitely. And I'm sure that they appreciate that they have a therapist who knows about fighting, who has a career himself in fighting, experience with it, and it's tailored to them. Now they're getting a specific physical therapist and who knows what fighting is like versus, you go to a regular outpatient orthopedic clinic, we know the typical, basketball, football, soccer, like everyday sport
Yeah.
related injuries. When it comes to MMA and fighting, that style is so different, and each style of fighting is different. It's what MMA is all about. So, it's. I'm sure they appreciate that they have, care.
Oh yeah, they definitely do because I think the biggest frustration for fighters and combat athletes when they go through the traditional medical system or healthcare system, they just run into providers and professionals that just have no clue what the sport is or how much it means to them. So generally, if they just saw, let's say, someone within their insurance, the professional may just say, "Oh, well, just take a month off." Or hey, you don't really need to be doing that. So you should probably stop fighting. And for them, it's their life. It's just what brings them a lot of joy. So um, for them to know that I don't keep them off of the mats, I keep them healthy and just to get back on the mats doing what they love. They really appreciate that.
Oh,
Is
100%.
is there anything you would recommend for someone that has patients that are fighters but doesn't have a lot of experience? Like, what are the first things they should look for? Um,
Uh,
w-
So there is a physical therapist, Dr. Kickass. I'm friends with him on Instagram. He's like a colleague. He's a physical therapist as well and a BJJ black belt. He has a course like about treating like you know some combat athletes, and that's probably like a good base for someone that just really has no clue about things, and they can get some information and just get a better insight about what it's like to work with combat athletes. If they are truly passionate about combat sports, I do suggest that they just take some classes and get into it and learn. And you just kind of like learn about their lifestyle, their demands, and everything. And once you get a better insight, you can better serve them.
mhm.
Yeah, definitely. Understanding it'll help understand the body mechanics and like what the impacts can do to the body.
Mhm.
I've thought about even taking a couple classes just to help better understand it too, because I've had a couple of fighters come in, especially I see a lot of jujitsu clients. So I've
Yeah.
thought about taking a course just to see what it entails. The most interesting one, slightly off topic for a second, most interesting client that I had, and I had no idea he did it until one day he came in and I learned that he does bare knuckle boxing. And he came in, I'll tell you, I'll put it like, hip on the line. I'm just going to say he was elderly and he came in
Mhm.
bruised up. And I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, man, like what happened to you? Go to, he's like, bare knuckle boxing. I'm like, that's pretty badass. Like, I was like, this is nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. They get some gnarly hand injuries.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm actually in geriatrics, so I don't have too many fighters. I do have actually one patient now who loves boxing, so we have like a little heavy bag in our gym, and we just
Cool.
wallop it a little bit. Um, but I think a lot of it that I'm interested in about that I can apply to my patients as well is sort of like you're saying. Um, I guess preparing people for things and not just reacting to everything, which
Yeah.
sometimes in geriatrics it could be a little tough, just depending on carryover and someone's
Mhm.
level of cognition. But I guess that could also apply to family members and helping them, I guess, bring that person into the right direction as well. Um, going a little bit more into mentality, or I guess actually into something that you mentioned before, weight cutting. How would you
Mhm.
recommend that someone actually cuts weight safely? Like we've seen all videos, pictures of people with crazy weight loss. Like for some reason, Conor McGregor pops into my mind right away. It's just
Yeah.
like that just doesn't seem safe and healthy. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So it is a pretty wild thing. So just the culture of social media and YouTube and everything, it's really the more dramatic stories that really get the attention. So yes, the person that's cutting a ridiculous amount of weight, for a fight gets more attention, but that's generally not the way to do it. So for those people that are doing like huge weight cuts during their fight camps, they are really at a pretty big caloric deficit for them to drop weight, and they're training a lot. So the dark side of that, what they don't realize is that because they don't consume much calories, their recovery's off. They're just focused on burning as much calories as possible. Like injuries pop up. You're going to see them with a lot of nagging injuries. Sometimes some of these fighters, their hormones take a hit. Their testosterone just drops because they're just not recovered very well. So then when it comes down to the actual weight cutting, depending on if they're working with a professional or not, some of these guys are just doing whatever they just learn from their own coach, and their own coach is learning from another coach. So it's like a game of telephone without any science behind it. So they're doing these like pretty much risky weight cutting practices to make weight, and it just puts a lot of stress on their body and their organs, and they don't quite understand the risks of it. And then, these impressionable people that love MMA or combat sports are watching that, and they're trying to mimic it. So I have a lot of calls with athletes and potential athletes where I'm like, oh, well, who guided you on the weight cut? They're like, oh, the internet. And they always just say, oh, the internet. And, they agree that it really could be dialed in because it was just never a good process when they were just trying to figure it out on their own with the guesswork.
mhm. So, do a lot of trainers basically learn for fighters learn how to train from other trainers, or are there any other avenues you find that are better that they learn how to do like a weight cut properly or things like that?
I mean, there are courses out there that does teach weight cutting, but I would say that you would have to have a science background with everything to really understand the nuance behind stuff. Because what, someone would take, let's say, a weight cutting course, they would just kind of like follow it like a technician. They would just look at it. They don't understand the science or the biology or physiology behind anything. They just blindly follow things. But when you understand the science behind things, you can understand like, okay, yes, there's some information over there, but you just kind of like put that in the background, then use your own kind of clinical judgment, experience, see what's going on, and then really make informed decisions when guiding someone on how to cut weight versus just blindly following like an instruction plan.
Hmm. It actually reminds me a lot of someone else we had on the channel. It was probably a few months ago. Was actually Tommy's good friend, Jake Maglione.
Okay.
He was a bodybuilder actually, and one of the
Hmm.
biggest things was he was talking about was just like the little nuances of just diet, proper hydration, making
Yeah.
sure you're cutting it, and I guess bulking properly.
Yeah.
And for the first time, I didn't think about how scientific that part of bodybuilding really is, and that's sort of what
Mhm.
getting at what you're saying now. Like there really
Yeah.
is a lot more to it than just like, oh, eat a calorie here, eat a calorie there, something like that.
Oh, oh yeah, it's huge. So, like with my athletes, I take them through cycles and things depending on what they want to work on. So they're like, "Oh, well, I want to gain some strength. I want to increase my power." I was like, "Okay, well, we're gonna have to put on some muscle, right?" And it's not just like a dirty bulk and just eat whatever you want. So it's a very um, structured approach, but to have them mainly put on muscle and gradually, and instead of just putting on a lot of fat, and then have them at a good weight range, and then cut trim back down so that they can make weight for their fight. So it's there's a lot of science behind it, and I think a lot of people in combat sports don't truly understand the science, so they just kind of throw a lot of bro science in there.
Yeah. And I even see, you know, like my friend that he's talking about it mentioned, and I've seen it for myself too, where different foods affect people different as well. Like he was
Mhm.
talking about how, and I'm sure it's the same for your fighters, where it's like you have to narrow down every little like thing that you're like piece of fuel you're putting into your body, and if one thing gets changed and your body reacts to it, you bloat and something happens, like you know, then okay, like I react like this to this food, so I need to keep it out, or if it's something better for your system, you kind of have to adjust as you go too. So I like that whole science approach. And I mean, I'm sure you see every fighter is you know different and unique in how their body performs with whatever they're putting in for their bulks or their cuts as well.
Yeah, I generally do nutrition coaching with them. I don't give them meal plans. I don't believe in meal plans. They're very restrictive. The athletes don't really learn anything. They just blindly follow it, and there's no variety of flexibility in it. So it does take some work, but once they go back and forth and they start understanding the science behind nutrition and fat loss, then they start playing around, finding the right mix of foods that they enjoy, that's sustainable for them. And I had one athlete that was like, he was good about hitting his fiber, but then it finally clicked in him. He's like, "Oh, fiber from whole foods. This is just keeps me a lot fuller than taking a fiber supplement." And for him, that was like a game changer for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you have food that's good quality and actually keeps you full for longer than just like trying to take a bunch of supplements or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Everybody always tries to go and follow, you know, like the Dr. Google and now Dr. GPT,
Yes.
ChatGPT, of course.
Yeah.
They go on there. I'm guilty. I use them from time to time. It can be useful, but
Yep.
we probably shouldn't be asking, you know, medical related or even like sport nutrition related questions. We should probably seek professional help, like Rich.
Yes. Yes. It's going to happen anyways. You really can't fight it. So I think that there's always going to be a portion of the population that will just always go to it. Like they'll just never pay for a professional. They'll always just like they'll spend like couple weeks just trying to figure out an answer, even if it's not the best answer. But there are a number of people that do realize when they use that, they're like, oh, you know what, this wasn't the best information. Oh, this person really doesn't understand me. So then they work with a professional that really like kind of gauges their personality and guides them the right way.
Mm-hmm. Like there's a reason that all the biggest athletes in every sport have people that help them. It's not like they just do it by themselves. Like you have, I guess I'm having a brain fart.
You have a lot of like medical professionals and scientists who are
Yeah.
coming in. You're studying the athlete and doing the right things to, you know, make sure that they can perform at the highest level possible, especially when it comes to the high
Yeah.
level athletes. So
Yeah. I mean, it is growing now, fortunately, but there is a lot of pseudoscience and bro science and everything. So the dirty secret is for them to, work with the highest like level fighters. They just kind of offer it for free, and then the fighter was like, "Oh, it's free," and then they could just kind of push whatever nonsense, and then just be like, "Well, look at this high level fighter doing stuff." I was like, that guy would have probably been fine without your help."
Yeah.
yeah, that's one. That's true. You know, people ride off the tailcoats of things like that all the time.
Yeah.
And I know you put a post up. I don't remember if it was a few weeks or however long ago it was that actually was related to that. How you try to make sure you have athletes that actually pay for the service and that they
Hmm.
want to be there. And it, honestly, it
Hmm.
makes sense. Like you have a good quality product that helps a lot of people, and people
Yeah.
should have to, show that they actually want it.
Yeah. And it is really um obviously to respect my time and expertise with things, but also for their purpose as well, because I mean we live in an age of free information, but then we still have people with tons of problems, and like it really didn't help much. So information alone is just not the problem, like not the solution for everything. So people do generally need like structured guidance and accountability with things. And um So, for them, for my athletes to benefit from that, yeah, they have to pay me. And when they pay, they are more invested in the process because they have skin in the game. And when they are seeing the gains and seeing everything and they understand how much time and expertise that I'm putting into them, they find like it's a tremendous value for the money that they pay. And it in turns just makes them a better athlete. They're just more bought in. They're making awesome gains. They're happy. I'm happy. So that's why I don't necessarily sponsor athletes unless they're like a paying athlete on the roster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of
Yep.
sense.
It becomes like a business transaction in a sense, like you guys are a team trying to better, so it makes sense that it happens that way for sure.
Yeah.
So, as far as other programs that you've seen, like what are some of the most common things that people do wrong when they're trying to train for the next fight?
Um, there is a mindset where they only take things seriously when they have a fight camp coming up. So they think that this gap between their fights is just a vacation, and then they can do whatever, just like train a little here and there, eat whatever they want, and oh wow, I don't have to work out that hard. But combat sports is just a different animal, right? So you're just always training. So my dedicated athletes, the serious ones, they're always training year round. And strength and conditioning wise, we're always working on things year round, whether they're in fight camp or outside of fight camp. Because if they're outside of fight camp, there's always something to work on, whether it's to put on more muscle, to work on this and that. And the fight camps is really for them to peak so that they can put on a strong performance for their fights. So if these fighters are just going in with the mindset, well, I'm going to get in shape during my fight camps to fight, odds are they're not really putting their best out there and they're just leaving a lot on the table. And that's where you kind of see a lot of fighters just kind of burn out in the sport because they're just trying to do so much at once, trying to lose a bunch of weight, trying to get in shape and stuff like that. And, it's mentally taxing. And then they just can't handle it. So when they're focusing on doing stuff year round, they generally have a much more sustainable career.
Mm-hmm. That actually reminds me of the NBA player Jamal Murray. I don't know if you're into the NBA at all, but
Hmm.
he is notorious for coming into the season um, out of shape. So he'll like it's tough. It's a long season. You're doing a lot of this
Yeah.
stuff. You build yourself up, but when you come into the season every year out of shape, like he gets hurt after a few months almost every year, and it seems like that's a big
Yep.
part of it. Like he didn't do what he needed to do in the off season, so he's just
Yeah.
more likely to have some of these injuries. And who knows? Maybe he would be a lot more successful if he did like what you're saying and keep it year
Yeah.
round in shape instead of just I'm going to build up when the season starts and then I'm going to do
Yeah.
nothing, maybe not nothing, but I'm not going to do what I need to do in the off season to get my body where it is or needs to be.
Yeah, that is a very common thing. So that is a mindset issue. So for someone that only takes it seriously when they have a game coming up or a fight coming up, they're probably doing it for superficial reasons. It's just really for like the validation, external validation, or clout or social media. But the dedicated fighters. They do understand that it is a year-round process. They're always working on something. They're always this, and it's really the pursuit of becoming better themselves. It's not really for social media or anything. Like a lot of my dedicated athletes don't really post much on social media. It's just really about their own journey. So they take pride in becoming stronger. They take pride in having much better cardio. And they take pride in just becoming a lot more skilled in getting better reads and everything. So it's just a whole different mindset that fighters need to adopt if they are truly serious.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very, it's leaning in with mindset. It's a very tolling physically on the body, but it's also tolling mentally because there's a lot that leads up to a fight. It's really stressful. It's very emotional. So kind of leaning into that, what's your approach with like the fighter's mentality and their mental health as like going into their training and their day to day?
Um, I so when I enrolled them off the bat, I do let them know like what they get out of this is what they put in. They have to show up, right? They have to do everything that I ask. I lay out the expectations for them, and I ask them, "Hey, do you foresee any barriers with the expectations that I just laid out for you?" And they'll say no, and then really the proof is like, are if they are constantly executing the number of things that I'm asking them to do, right? I'm asking them to be consistent. I'm asking them to be disciplined with things, and then once they are able to remain consistent with all that stuff, and then we start shifting their mindset about, hey, are you doing these things with intention? It's not just to check a box now. It's not just to lift a dumbbell. It's not just to squat some weight. Are you lifting with the intention to get stronger, as the cycle goes on, or improve the speed of your lifts as the cycle goes on? Or with this cardio, it's like, hey, are you focused on really improving your recovery between rounds so that when you are, sparring or anything like that, you're feeling fresh every round and then, better prepared for your fights. So, or when they're eating, hey, are you constantly hitting to perform and recover so you're feeling your best for your whole fight camp? So there is a big dedication for it, and the dedicated fighters do buy into it and they understand it. The others is just like it is a learning process for them, and then some they totally appreciate it. They change their lives in so many ways, and others are like, wow, I didn't realize that fighting is just this much dedication, and they just almost become a hobbyist. And I was like, yeah, no, that's totally fine. Fighting is not for everyone.
Yeah, and I love that because you're taking like the whole approach as everything that you're doing is serving a purpose in the sport and their transition and their
Mhm.
progression through the sport to get better and better. It's not just like, oh, hey, like we got to get stronger, we're going to the gym. It's, hey, we got to get stronger because we need to be able to you know, for lack of better terms, be stronger in the match against your opponents. Everything kind of tailors right back to the sport. It gives it more of just like a zoned in focus and purpose versus just a general focus and purpose. So I like that mentality part of it as well.
Yeah, and I do think
Yeah, it
there's.
is.
Oh, sorry, my bad, Rich. You can go.
No, 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 go ahead.
I was
Go
just going
ahead.
to say, I do think there's a lot of carryover just to really a lot of parts of healthcare. Honestly, I know for me, like getting people to buy in is one of the biggest things. Like I could always tell when people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then people who do. Like the people that I want to get or that do get better, are the people that do the things that they're supposed to every day. People who don't are usually the ones who don't do too much.
Yeah, and that does come into that whole like I don't work with athletes for free, right? Because if it's free, they're like, whatever, they don't feel like they're losing much. But if they're paying just a good amount that they care, if they're losing, they're not getting the most out of their money, then yeah, they're gonna take it more seriously. So it just adds an extra layer to the coaching process.
Yeah. And Rich, now when of course fighting and matches and tournaments, they're unique in the sense that there's a lot of like training and build up that goes to a match, and versus like other sports, like, okay, we got a game this day, we got a game this day, we got a game this day. There's a lot of
Mhm.
training and focus that leads up to these tournaments, and there's a lot of recovery time after. Now of course we train, the fight happens, and there's a larger recovery time. It's the nature of the sport. How do you
Mhm.
keep their mental health and their mental status on track to get them to focus on progressing through their career rather than just it fading after the fight?
Yeah, so a big issue or a common issue in combat sports is that a lot of fighters will go into fight camp. They're just waiting for this fight, waiting for this fight, waiting for this fight. This fight happens, whether they win or lose. They have a almost immediate dip in their mental health. They have a depression because they realize that I did all this and I fought. It didn't change my life, and now all the problems that they avoided beforehand, it just comes back. Right? It didn't go away. They didn't solve their problems, so they just kind of put it on the back burner, and now they have to face it again. So that's why I do emphasize for athletes to really take care of their mental health, work with professionals. I've gotten a number of my athletes to work with a professional. um, just address what is going on, make them just a better person and better athlete overall. to stuff. I do say, look, like, is it just one fight that you're looking for, or are you looking to have a career? And if you're looking to have a career, it's like, okay, well, there's stuff that you need to improve on, right? And they'll agree, and I want to work on this, or work on this, or it's like, well, this is the time to work on it, because you're not going to work on it when another fight camp comes. And generally, when they buy into that and they understand it, they are putting intentional work. They have structure and accountability and guidance, so that keeps them just better mental health overall, because they're always working towards something instead of just like just trying to find something to fill the time.
Yeah.
So, you good, Tom?
No, go ahead, Aaron.
I was just gonna sort of same area of mental health, but sort of a little bit different. How do you deal with, I guess, the like weight issues or body image issues that someone might get?
It is a common issue with fighters. It is a touchy subject. Um, that's the reason why I don't believe in meal plans and everything. So when I teach them uh, how to eat, finding the right mix of foods that they enjoy, they generally find something that's a little more enjoyable. And when they buy in, they generally tend to find more macro friendly recipes of certain foods that they enjoy, right? And then they do that, they enjoy it and everything. So through that process, some of them don't feel restricted with food, and then that improves, because before they used to just think, oh well, I just have to eat grilled chicken and rice and broccoli and that's it, or just salads all the time. But once they understood that they can still enjoy food while trimming down, generally a number of them do improve. But the athletes that do have like an issue with the scale, like stepping on the scale and they just mentally can't handle it, I encourage them to work with a mental health professional, because if you are fighting, the scale is just part of it. It's part of the game. You really can't escape it, right? It's like, if you don't look at the scale and you're going to step on for, weigh-in day, like, and you don't want a nasty surprise. So you want to be well prepared throughout the process. So you almost have to improve your relationship with the scale. So even though I do coach them on some of that, I do encourage them to work with a professional if they are truly having issues with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I do apologize. I laughed and smiled at the grilled chicken and rice part, because I did that in college, and it just because bro science. I was guilty of the bro science. That was before my PT days. So I laughed because I did it and I was miserable. It was awful.
Yeah.
Didn't offer enough variety. But I do love that you're a big advocate on like the mental health side of it, and seeking a professional, and seeking, whether it's a therapist, a psychiatrist, for the fighters to work with, just because fighting is it's a stressful sport. It's a very emotional sport. There's a lot of things that are going on, and we look at fighting a lot of the times and think like, oh, okay, it's just one guy versus another guy in the ring. It's like, no, he's got, all this training he's dealing with. How even you're mentioning the battle with the scale and the mentality behind that too. The fear of not being able to make weight. There's a lot of anxiety, it sounds like, that can kind of come up around this sport as well.
Yeah. So generally, a lot of fighters, overall, they're pretty cool people. They, you know, like, there is a portion that they do it for their own ego, but there's just others that just truly enjoy the sport. They just enjoy that process of just becoming a better version of themselves. So they're just pretty humble people, hardworking people. So fighting will only last like a certain number of years. Like, the fight career doesn't last forever. So I always want to make sure that they're a good person so that they can succeed after fighting is done as well. So that's something that I always emphasize with my longtime athletes.
Yeah, like there's more to life after your career is over than just fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot that can carry over from fighting, from a lot of sports, that will help with the rest of your life too. Like just work ethic. We need work ethic, that's for sure.
Yep. Yes. Yes.
And on the focus on like the post fight, giving them direction and continued purpose, like you said, in the off time, like, hey, we wanted to work on X, Y, and Z. Now's the best time to do it before you start another camp. And giving them that little nudge and direction, saying like, "Hey, we talked about this. Like, now's the time to get on it." So I love that there's always a purpose and a direction that you're guiding them through it too.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very huge for them. They instilled a lot of discipline with themselves. They changed their lives, changed their relationship with food. Some of them just realized, oh wow, I do have the discipline to stick with this. Well, I could just go back to school and instill that discipline as well. And then they start going back and studying and doing stuff. And it's just really cool to see that the the skills that they learned while working together and while training as a fighter, like they it over into other aspects of their lives.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Um, Going a little bit more, I guess, into the weight loss, just sort of my own curiosity. How do you determine how much a person is supposed to cut? Like, is there a part? I know it's different because there's different weight classes and everything.
Yeah, so generally there's like this rule, like 10% rule, like you don't want to cut more than 10% of your body weight. So when you see UFC fighters when they're doing extreme like pretty weight cuts, they're generally cutting like 12 to 13% of their body weight, and that's a lot. That's why you see some of them almost like dying on the scale.
Hmm.
So that is like a general rule of thumb, but that's not the um end all be all determination of like how much to cut. Um, I would say that their weight class is really the more important thing. What weight class is appropriate for them? A lot of fighters have no clue about what weight class they belong in. Sometimes they just try to go as low as possible based off their height, and they have no clue about the calories, how to get down there, how to maintain it, and that's why they're doing all these crazy weight cuts and just binging and going back up in weight because they have no idea about how to properly maintain that weight. So once they find the appropriate weight class, then I would take a look at what's going on, and we work together for a cut. I wouldn't cut as extreme. I want to see how their body responds to stuff, and then as I get to know more about how their body reacts to the cutting process, then we could start gradually pushing it more and more to see where it is good for them, where they're feeling good during their cut, and then also good for the performance of their fight. So it's not really about how much you can cut for your fight, it's really about how you're feeling for your fight.
Yeah, makes sense. You want to be able to perform to the best of your ability. If you cut too much weight, you're probably not going to be able to perform to the best of your ability.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you speak with a lot of combat athletes, they think their advantage is about how much they can cut, and it really doesn't work that way. So if they are just cutting with a lot of guesswork, they don't feel great during their fights and everything, it negates that size advantage that they think they were going to have.
Hmm. Yeah, it
Yeah.
actually
And
reminds. You good, Tom?
yeah, no, I was gonna say it also like of course cutting too far, like you had mentioned earlier, is going to affect their energy, their output, their performance. You mentioned before it even affects testosterone in their recovery process as well, which is something I didn't really even like think about. So just hearing how like scientific it can get and affect each different
Yeah.
piece of their ass like their entire fight, it's big. So it really comes down to a science.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I guess not really in preparation for today. It just sort of happened when I was scrolling through YouTube today. I saw this video of Daniel Cormier and his weight cuts before the fight or
Mhm.
before a fight. I don't know if it was every time, but at least one of
Yeah.
them. And he was
Mhm.
saying how um, he would go into the sauna. While he's in the sauna, he'd start putting on a bunch of layers, the old trash
Yeah.
bag thing,
Yeah.
and then right after he got out of the sauna, he'd go right over to the treadmill and then just run and run and run until like he felt like his sleeves were filled with water, like up his arm and like
Yeah.
up a certain part of his leg. And he was like, "Oh," and then like my friends were there to just like soothe me and tell me I was okay.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
that's sort of terrible. Like it does sort of make you wonder if he'd be able to. I mean, he had a lot of great performances, of course, but how it would have affected his career if maybe he didn't do something so extreme.
Yeah, I mean, for him, he had a great career. But he definitely could have been a little more disciplined on the strength and conditioning and the diet end and everything. So he is a bigger fighter. So yeah, when you're saying you're going in a sauna and you're wearing the trash bags and all that stuff, a lot of fighters are going in there thinking, well, the hotter it is, the more I sweat. And it's good. But the thing is, they don't realize is that when you're pretty dehydrated with everything, and that you're jumping in a sauna with like a trash bag and everything, you are increasing your chances of overheating. And if you overheat, you are going to feel very sick, and it can have some very dire consequences. So there's a lot of fighters that end up in the hospital, or they get sick. And they miss weigh-ins, or they get sick right after the weigh-ins because they are just cutting a lot with a lot of guesswork, and they have no one there to make sure that the process is as safe as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other thing reminds me of actually is when I was in middle school football, where we actually had weight limits. And the way I
Hmm.
lost weight was like the least healthy thing ever. I think I went like
Hmm.
2 weeks and ate yogurt. And
Yep.
we just honestly we didn't know any better. Like my mom was like, "Okay, you want to play? This is what we'll do." And we did it, and I made weight. But at that point, it's like you really don't feel very good.
No.
And like the second I left the weigh-in, I would just go to a restaurant, eat like a ton of food, and drink a bunch of water. And
Yeah.
I unfortunately, because I was just a big guy in middle school, I just had to keep doing it every 2 weeks, because if you didn't get a certain
Yeah.
point below the weigh-in, they just keep making you do it again and again and again.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that's always like it's in the back of your mind too. Like you said, you're fighting with the scale. That it's like, oh, am I gonna be able to make it this week? Am I gonna be able to keep playing, or am I gonna have to wait 2 weeks because I had too many sandwiches or something?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a very common problem, though. Especially wrestling. The weight classes, like for them, they just cut. They do a lot of crazy cutting practices, and they almost always believe that they have it down to a science, and it's not. And they are they are kind of screwing up a lot of things with themselves. And one is with their relationship with food and the scale, because it really is like that. They starve themselves, they binge, they starve themselves, and then they binge.
Hmm. I was gonna say I remember in high school, like when I was a kid, I wasn't a wrestler, but I remember, like after school, like leaving, walking by the gym, and we had two gyms. One was like the bigger gym was basketball, the smaller gym was for wrestling. And I remember like walking by and seeing like just a line of wrestlers. They're all in sweatsuits, trash bags, and they're
Yep.
taped up and they're running circles. I'm like, so anytime I think of weight cutting, I think of that. And now like after going through grad school and learning and realizing the damage that they're doing to their bodies at such a young age, one physically and two mentally, it's not the healthiest way, and there's definitely a more scientific route that we should go about this. And I love that you're introducing that to your fighters and telling them like there's a safer, more appropriate way to get the same result and also not completely destroy all of your energy and mental health.
Yep. Yeah, that is a very important thing. It is something that combat sports needs. I think the sexy thing is how much weight you can cut for a fight, or the craziest exercise you can do, and this and that, and oh, this is what the elites do. But really, it's the simple things that you do every day, structured, backed by science, is what's really going to make the difference as a fighter.
Do you have any recommendations for, I guess, newer fighters? Maybe it is like a high school athlete that wants to do some wrestling, or maybe you're just trying to get into Muay Thai or kickboxing or any of those things. Like how you can get into it, I guess, more safely, and I guess try to use science as much as possible.
Get into what part safely, like the sport or strength and conditioning, or
Just the sport in general, like making sure that you're not doing anything that hurts yourself. Like I know I have a heavy bag in my basement, and I
Mhm.
did exactly what you were saying wrong before.
Yeah.
I wanted to just do it as like a cardio type exercise for some
Yep.
boxing, and I really didn't know proper technique for punching. So I basically just like led with my shoulder with every punch, and eventually,
Yeah.
like my right, I guess rotator cuff just got super sore, and I
Yeah.
was like, what's going on. And the way I really got better with it is I had a friend who actually did a little bit of MMA, and he told me, like, "Oh
Yeah,
yeah, you're not punching properly," and that
yeah.
really helped the shoulder pain get a lot. Or I don't really have shoulder pain anymore, so I got a lot better.
Yeah, so I generally recommend for people that are serious and they want to learn combat sports, everything, find a good coach that will work on your technique, invest their time in you, and when you start learning how to punch properly, how to kick properly, how to do certain submissions or escapes properly, that really does help. Technique is a huge part of combat sports. Is a technique or skill first sport, so that is very important. Like I don't really recommend. I mean, there's stuff on YouTube that you can look up, but you're not really getting that feedback and accountability and guidance. So work with a knowledgeable coach, and that will help a lot. And then practice on your own.
Yeah, so a coach will be able to actually like tell if you're doing something wrong, whereas if you're just watching
Oh
YouTube
yeah,
videos, you could be
yeah,
doing everything completely wrong and hurting
yeah,
yourself and not know the better.
Yeah,
yeah,
taking a
and
while to find that out.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. It's just learning how to like transfer your power on your punches and everything. Like a coach will sit down and will take a look and be like, oh, you know what? You're just punching with your arms too much versus you're sitting and turning and snapping your shoulder forward into your punch and really kind of developing your power from your base and your foot and legs. So there's a lot of nuance to it. So that's why I give a lot of respect to the skills coaches that really do work with their fighters to like level them up skills wise.
Mm-hmm. Are there any injuries in particular you find are most common with fighters, or it's tough because like there's just so many different movements and things like that?
It's just so different. I would just say, I wouldn't say body part injuries, but it's just more like there's traumatic injuries and there's nagging injuries, right? So traumatic injuries is stuff that uh, it just happens. Let's say you're scrambling, trying to get a takedown and everything. People have broken their ankles, twist their ankles. I had an athlete recently tear his LCL. Luckily, it wasn't his ACL. Um, I've had people that gotten swept where, like someone just kind of dumped them on the ground like in Muay Thai and she had a little fracture in the spine. So those things are hard to prevent. It's just the name of the game is very like you can prep your best to, be bulletproof or durable for it, but those things just happen. But the nagging injuries, that's generally as a result of just poor recovery, non-structured strength training, and their training levels are just too high. So if they are not lifting for their sport, they're just doing skills training like 3 hours a day, trying to be the hardest worker in the room. They ignore their sleep. They don't really eat much and everything. Things are going to break down. Their muscles just really couldn't keep up with the demands of the sport, and that's why they start getting a lot of like nagging neck injuries, shoulder injuries, knee injuries, hip injuries, back injuries, and everything. But once we have them on a structured plan and they're doing things efficiently, a lot of those nagging injuries generally clear up.
Mm-hmm. Nowadays, is it like does mostly everyone strength train, or there's still like I guess people out there that don't do it as much?
It is becoming more and more popular now because combat sports has increased in popularity, and then they'll see like their favorite fighters lifting some weights and everything, but it still has a long way to go. Generally, old school was very against strength training because they feel like it'll just make them bulky and slow. They're like, oh, you're not a bodybuilder, you're a fighter. You don't really need that. Like strength skills training is just enough for you to be strong for your fights. But n- now the newer school tend to understand the importance of strength training. But like I said, there's a lot of just hucksters and bro science, and they'll just overcomplicate stuff and really just to get clicks and views. But what most fighters need is just structured lifting with cycles and progressions, stay consistent with it, really, hone down their nutrition and their recovery and everything. It doesn't sound sexy, but that is why a number of my fighters are just doing well for a long run. And, and people always go into it and say, yo, you look so strong. You feel so strong. Why? And it's not because I have them doing the fanciest exercises out there. It's just that I have them consistently sticking to the fundamentals and really pushing it when needed instead of just blasting with a bunch of novelty.
Yeah, and that style of strength training also. I mean, it doesn't only deliver the strength that they can use for their fights, but it's also going to allow for more. It's going to help with their coordination, their stability. I'm sure it helps with like stance work. I'm sure it helps. It transitions to all different parts of their fight, especially when we're just getting down to just the fundamental basics of strength training. It's beneficial on multiple different levels, including improving strength, joint health, and everything we know as physical therapists too.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Like a lot of my athletes do love single leg work that I put them through, and they find because striking, there is a good amount of single leg uh, strikes that goes on. So that once they feel better balance with their striking, they generate more power. They just feel a lot better overall, and yeah, they really appreciate the improvements that they're making from their strength and conditioning into their skills training, and their skills coaches notice. So it's just like a positive loop.
Yeah, it's like you've said it a few times actually. Like these bro science people always try to look for the best looking thing that looks so cool, and a lot of
Yeah.
times those don't help. Like I even saw a video today of the guy doing squats with two kettlebells on the ground, and he was standing on top of the
Yeah.
kettlebells, and then he had bands holding the weights up. And it's like
Yeah.
someone somewhere is going to try to do that same thing and probably hurt themselves and not be able to maybe do their next competition.
Yeah.
So it's tough to get around those bro
Yeah.
sciencers sometimes.
Just keep it simple.
Well, the thing is, a lot of these high-level fighters, right? They do get coaches that go up to them and like willing to sponsor them for free and stuff like that in exchange for, exposure, social media exposure bucks. And so they have them doing like a number of nonsense stuff, right? And they're like, oh, well, someone is squatting with like two kettlebells tied at the end of the bars, and then, they can kind of spew a lot of bro science to really make sure like to prove their point about why it sounds intelligent, but it's really not going to make them stronger. Like actual just squatting with decent weight and really pushing it, and eating to support those gains. So that's the problem that a combat sports really does have to improve on.
Yeah, the carryover of those exercises really isn't going to be that much, if anything. And then on top of that, the risk of injury is also super high when you do some of those wonky things as well.
Oh yeah, they do
Yeah.
some pretty gnarly wild things I see, and I'm like, wow, well, like what is going on here? But yeah, it is what it is. It's social media.
And like I'm a fan of like sports specific training and training in manners that are specific to be replicated inside of the sport that you're performing. But when it comes to strength and conditioning, the basics and the fundamentals are important because the training for especially fighting, it's going to be working on their form, their stance, their strikes, their like you're doing all the other things outside of strength training. Strength training is just serving its one purpose to help them get stronger for their fights and all the other joint health related things as well. You're going to work on the other aspects of it outside of that.
Yeah, that is a big component of it. So my philosophy with strength and conditioning and performance end is like I'm not the star of the show. I'm just really to help the fighters become the best that they can be, so that they can put in the focus work for their skills training. So sometimes there is like this ego driven personalities in the field where they feel like they're the star of the show and they just highlight themselves, and that does become a conflict with sometimes skills coaches and strength conditioning coaches butt heads because they're almost trying to be like the top dog, and it really comes at the detriment to the fighter. It's really about the fighter's best interest, making sure that they're prepped, they're just ready to go, and they're getting the most out of their skills training so they can grow as a fighter.
Yeah, I think like just as physical therapists, maybe just coaches in general, like we're really just meant to be a guide. Like you said, you're not the star of the show. You just get athletes, our patients, everybody to go sort of in the right direction so that they get where they want to be.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, we are actually getting pretty close to our hour here, believe it or not.
Oh, cool.
Do you have anything that you would like to plug?
I would like to just plug my business, so you can catch me on Instagram at theMMAdoc. I'm on TikTok as well, but mainly Instagram. So I really like to push my mission forward of just helping fighters just level up with the science-based approach for their strength and conditioning, eating recovery, and weight cutting. Um, I've been working with fighters from around the world, and from amateur to professional. Business has been going for 5 years. Everything is going pretty well. I'm very happy with it, and I'm just really fortunate about the freedom that business has afforded me compared to working as a physical therapist in the past.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we definitely appreciate you having you on, and thank you for giving us all this input. A lot of cool stuff that I haven't really thought about.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
My pleasure.
with that, we will call it a night. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good one.
Cool.
Thanks
All
for
right.
coming on, Rich.
Thanks.